It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Charles Darwin. And according to Vision Works Solutions, entrepreneurs should not only adapt, but pivot to profit. Welcome, viewers, to the Pivot to Profit Makeover, brought to you by Vision Works Solutions and their partners. Now, if you didn't know, Global Entrepreneurship Week is the world's biggest celebration of innovators, job creators, those who launch startups, bring ideas to life, and drive economic growth and expand human welfare. And this year's theme of Global Entrepreneurship Week is Reboot, Rethink, Regenerate. It has been over a year since the COVID-19 pandemic unfolded, and we now look ahead to the serious work of rebooting our communities. The aim is not simply to start back activity, but to have economies that perform better, are more sustainable, and provide equitable access to all in a post-pandemic world. Our national boundaries as porous to new ideas as they are to a coronavirus, which makes it imperative for all of us to seize the opportunity to reboot and help those most severely impacted by the economic downturn to rethink together as one global ecosystem and to regenerate lost jobs while helping all economies to rise on an incoming tide of entrepreneurial potential. And in keeping with the overall theme of Reboot, Rethink, Regenerate, Vision Works, along with its partners, is proud to host 3 events during Global Entrepreneurship Week 2021 under the banner Pivot to Profit. Why pivot to profit? Well, just off the top of my head, your business or service is an answer to someone's unrealized need. Pivot and pivoting have become very common terms in these pandemic times. A recent survey conducted by Vision Works has indicated that many persons and businesses are experiencing great challenges in adjusting to deliver those needed answers. It is clear we're no longer conducting business as usual. The new normal has brought new opportunities, and more keep emerging. Picking up a favorite meal of doubles at a quick shop, for instance. Now, this series aims to equip participants with the tools needed to effectively pivot, survive, and thrive in a constantly changing business environment. Our mission this afternoon is threefold. First, to inform about the new opportunities that can be pursued in this current pandemic and post-pandemic world. Second, to educate about new and emerging business realities and the mindset, the methods, the processes needed to recalibrate business models to capitalize on these new opportunities. And third, to inspire persons. Take the leap, aggressively pursue the opportunities that are critical for you to impact your space. Partnering with VisionWorks this evening are Launchpad Consultancy, LSC Productions, Ingenuity Business Development, and Timely Entrepreneur. This session will take selected participants, those entrepreneurs who are ready and who are ready to be ready, through a guided step-by-step process to develop a future-driven pivot roadmap. At the end of the discussion, You will have completed a review of the business environment, done a pivot SWOT, and re-envisioned the business model needed to take your business into the future. In the end, we hope you are prepared to complete and be ready to adapt and pivot to profit. We are ready to begin. Now, adding doubles to the checkout is one person's pivot story. But this evening, we begin by turning the spotlight on an individual who will be sharing his pivot story with us. He's none other than Mr. Arnold Best. And Mr. Best wears many hats. As CEO of Arrowhead Strategic Intervention Services, he helps individuals develop personal growth strategies, apply life hack techniques, as well as helping those in business with various business improvement methods. He's a serial entrepreneur and he has done very well. With a business career spanning over 20 years, he has founded, managed, developed, and supported the growth of several entrepreneurial initiatives and corporate ventures. The foremost of these being Cachet Clothing Store, Emphasis Clothing, and most recently, High Vis Company Limited, that provides a range of reflective safety apparel. As any entrepreneur would imagine, it has not all been smooth sailing. Today, he's here to share with us how, as an entrepreneur, he has had to pivot in order to navigate the various challenges that come with surviving and thriving in uncertain times. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Arnold Best.
Thank you so much, Simone, for that introduction. I keep on smiling to myself when you started to call all the different things and realize it was such a journey. So within my discussion here with you all today, it will be short, and I just want you guys to understand the meaning of pivot and what is pivot. I want to go back to a sport called basketball. Most of us know basketball. All of us are supposed to know it's basketball. And sometimes you see a player under the ring, having the ball, looking to pass. And what he's doing there is actually pivoting. He's looking for opportunities to pass to his team member in order to shoot or even take the shot himself. And that is what pivoting is all about. And many companies had to pivot during this pandemic. And one of the things we did in pivoting our own company is looking at opportunities. Most people will say it's luck. When they had the lockdown and we have the factory, still had workers working at the time, and they asked, actually, did the they the first lockdown. We didn't have people at work, and they asked for masks. I got the call the Saturday before the Prime Minister announced that they know they will be issuing masks, and we got that opportunity. And that was just a one-time thing. It didn't last. And we have to look beyond that. And what we did, we started to look at ways of really, where can we get more business? Our business in the manufacturing, which is Emphasis, is really all about Carnival. And 2020 was our last Carnival. And after that, it's like, okay, we're not going to see Carnival in a while. So what we're going to do? So what we did actually is started to look at other industries which we never thought of, and industries where people came to us before to produce and we didn't. So now we're looking at, okay, how can we produce, but we are not going the same traditional way. So that is where Life High-Vis came about. Life High-Vis is a company that we created in the pandemic, actually a couple months ago, where we decided to offer a particular service that people are not getting, and it will be easier. So we started to look at the opportunities. And one thing I want to say to anybody who is feeling in a position that they are stuck in their business and not seeing opportunities, one of the most important things in pivoting is preparation. It doesn't matter what you're preparing for. It doesn't matter to overthink what you're preparing for. Just prepare yourself. You know your business. You believe in your business. Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for opportunities. You don't never know what opportunity. Remain true to your business. Huh? You remain true. You keep the foundation of your business, but prepare yourself for opportunities. And this is what we did. We prepare ourselves for the opportunities that when I saw a little crack in that market, I said, you know what? Nobody is doing it. Let's do it. And now we have launched our new brand, Life High-Vis Apparel, and it's doing really good for the last couple months we started, and it's doing really good. So that is one of the things we started looking at. Prepare yourself for opportunities. Even after the pandemic, continue preparing. If you're not getting it now, it's okay, but prepare yourself for the pandemic. Also, nothing is cast in stone. Remember that. Sometimes we have a business, and I love my business, I love my brand, but I love my consumer more. I'm going to repeat that so it could really resonate. I love my business, but I love my consumer more. Fall in love with your consumers, the people that you plan to serve. Start falling in love. We get caught up with the branding of our product and our services so much that we get so entrenched in that we forget the people that we plan to serve. So what I did is really start to look at the people that I plan to serve, and I fell in love with them. So when they call and they say, listen, this may not work in our industry, but we will need this. And I start to create around that. So it's nothing cast in stone in your business. And moving forward, the world is changing so fast, so rapidly. I mean, you're seeing driverless cars. Ray-Bans just introduced new features on their shades where you could take camera, you could take pictures and whatnot. The world has changed and it will keep on evolving quicker than we ever think. So don't let that get, this is the core of my business. I respect that. And I want you to respect it, but learn to switch up, learn to take opportunities as I talked about earlier on, and see where it could still remain the core of your business, but you're adding on more services. Don't ever say, that is not me. And I know there's a fear factor why you say it, because you already created a brand of something in your head and on paper, but be careful of that. And the final one I want to leave you guys with here, the business is not about you. The business that you have started, the business that you're going to start is not about you no more. Once you open those doors, once you open that laptop, once you make that phone call, it's not about you no more. It's about the people you plan to serve. And I want you to remember that. Please, please remember of everything I said in the short time I have with you all. Remember this. When you start a business and you pick up the phone to make a call, or you open your laptop to start a website, it's not about you no more. And this is what we could fall short in the near future. People want that connection, that you care about me. And this is what kept us alive during the course of the pandemic. And I said to many forums, the pandemic didn't hurt us much. And again, because we cared so much about the people. And even with Life High-Vis now, it's even deeper now because it's about saving life. The product is all about saving life. So it's more caring. But all I want, no matter if you're selling lollipop, you're selling you're having a parlor, you're selling water, no matter what it is, it's not about you no more. So guys, have a wonderful session. Simone, thank you so much, Raul, and the whole team. Thank you all to the panel. Please thank each and every one of you and have a great afternoon into the evening. And that's it for me, Have a wonderful time. So, but to profit, always remember, opportunities is out there and take it.
Wow. Thank you, Arnold. I know we definitely heard from your heart, and I like the way that you broke it down for us. So we had a story from your own personal experience, starting with basketball. And when you started to talk about basketball, it reminded me of my netball days, because you're correct. You pivot in netball just as in basketball. And the thing with pivoting is you pivot only when you have the ball. You have your business out there. So you are primed and you are ready to pivot. And we're glad that we can help you this afternoon. Something else that Arnold said, he said, prepare yourself for opportunities. And that's what this makeover workshop is all about, helping you to zero in on your opportunities. I like how Arnold expressed it because he said he saw a crack. Come on. A crack? Yes, a crack. Your idea isn't too small. It isn't too big, it isn't too huge. Hey, stop downplaying your ideas. You need to take that idea and pivot to profit. Something else that Anil said that I really want to stress on, it's so important. Believe. Believe in the value of your product, your good, your service. Because if you don't believe in it, who will? When you believe in it, you're able to sell it in a way that answers someone else's needs. So you want to be in that space where you believe in your product, you talk about it. It shows, people can tell. If you notice something about Arnold, Arnold just lit up every time he spoke about his products and what he was bringing to the market and what it was doing. And all of that is part of you infusing your belief into what you are providing. Something else that Arnold said that I found was wow. He said, fall in love with your customers. Can't we all do with some love? You know, who has walked into a store and said, oh my goodness, I wish they would be more customer friendly or more service oriented, or call someone on the phone. Fall in love with your customers. Find out what they need. And like Arnold said, and like he did, he was open when someone asks, can you do this? Do you do that? This is a time where the opportunities, they're not going to come in the same mold that you're accustomed to. So be ready when you see that crack to just jump in. And one more thing from Arnold's sharing with us. He said the business is no longer yours. The business is no longer yours. And what I gather from that is that people have an expectation. So when you deliver something, the next time they connect with you, they have something in mind based on what you have delivered before. So we really thank Arnold. Arnold, thank you so much for taking the time out with us. We wish you all the best in your new initiative. We can just tell it's going to be a great success. And of course, we will want you to keep us posted. So folks, we're moving on to our next presenter on. And just to remind you, we are live and we want you, as you listen, take your notes and be ready to ask your questions. We welcome your interaction. If you agree with a comment, it reminds you of something that you did, drop us a note. We'd love to hear and our panelists will respond to you. Our next presenter, we are going to delve into the pivot environment. You know, that space that we occupy that right now is kind of shaky, you know, and we're going to hear from Mr. Randall Douglas, who's a marketing and sales coach. He's a virtual marketing guru, a versatile marketing professional, over 26 years in the field, and he brings with him strong corporate experience in sales, marketing, trade marketing, export management, and general management. He has a diverse background that includes senior management experience at leading regional and global companies, whose operations are rooted in global best practice standards. Randall provides advice and coaching in any area of marketing that you may need, from market research to feasibility studies, trade marketing, account management, merchandising, online or offline marketing, branding, promotions, advertising, traditional to guerrilla marketing or export marketing. Randall can help. And he runs his own consultancy, Ingenuity Business Development. The guidelines for how and when we pivot is determined by a number of factors. The foremost of those being the current and emerging trends that impact the types, the nature of the delivery of goods and services that consumers demand. In this session, Mr. Douglas will take us through a proven tool that will help you assess the current environment as the first step in making the best pivot choices for your business. Welcome, Randall Douglas.
Simone. Thank you, Simone. really great introduction. I feel humbled by the introduction that you put together there. But certainly, I would really like to thank my colleague who went before, Arnold, for such a great opening session, opening presentation, and just pulling part of what he said to get into my section. The business is not yours, in that, yes, it's your business, but the business takes on a life of its own. The business is now its own entity. And as I'm fond of saying when I deal with clients, and especially in pre-COVID times when we were doing a lot of our face-to-face and seated visits, in-person visits, in the room sitting with you, there's an empty chair, and in that empty chair is your business, right? That business has a physical presence, a life of its own. It has its own aura, its own entity, and you need to treat it as such. You can't just think of it as me. Yes, you may be part of it and putting out your effort into it, but the business is a living, breathing organism. And like any organism, it operates in an environment. And it's important to know what environment that your business is going to operate in. There's a popular tool that is used to do what we call an environmental scan, which is a fancy way of saying taking a look around you, both in a virtual and in a research and in a physical sense, to see what's happening with your business and where it's going to operate. That tool is called the PESTLE, which is an acronym, PESTLE. It's also known in some circles as STEEPLE. Some people know it as PESTLE, but we like PESTLE. And what we would see is that, in fact, we have added a little extra to the PESTLE today, and we've said get pestled with a D at the end, with the D being an extra part of PESTLE, which we'll get into. So PESTLE normally looks at your environment, and the D that we've put in now looks at digital. So let's move on to our next slide, where we're going to take a look at how PESTLE impacts on you. So how does PESTLE impact in your digital transformation strategy? A good digital strategy has three components: diagnosis, defining the problem and understanding where you fit, what we call the operating principle, what is the guiding strategy to achieve the customer and organization satisfaction, and then the third thing is the strategic playbook, specific steps and actions involved in achieving the operating principles. So this is different from a business plan. These are taking the business plan and really making it in a nice, tight, short document that you're going to use with you every day. So let's move on to our next slide, where we delve a bit more into that. So how can PESTLE benefit you in a digital age? For some of you may say, well, listen, I know about PESTLE and environmental scan, but so much has changed and so much is difficult. Does it make sense to do it? Well, of course, now it makes sense to do it even more. If you do a proper PESTLE, especially in digital age, it's going to inform and guide a lot of the things that your business needs. Social media, everyone is, I'm sure, using it in some form or fashion. It's going to help you optimize that. It's also going to look at what we call your search engine optimization, which is when people Google you and search for you online, can they find you easily? And a PESTLE will inform that. Your online reputation is paramount these days, making sure that people know who you are and what you're about and what you stand for. Content marketing, PESTLE plays a key part in determining what you're going to put out there in terms of informing people about your business and topics related to it. And the final two things are your digital analytics, which is looking at the information that's coming back in. Are we doing well? Is this all making sense? I'm spending all this money, boy, what's happening? And what we call pay-per-click marketing, which is that a new way of saying advertising, but in a digital space. So pay-per-click is looking at that marketing spend that you're spending online and saying, is this making sense for me? So your PESTLE will guide that. So for some of you who may not be familiar, or those who are already familiar, what is PESTLE? Let's take a look at our next slide. So when you look at PESTLE, and what we are saying now in Ingenuity is PESTLed, the D. First of all, the P stands for political. How does a government policy affect you and your customer? And here's a good example. You may have a product you're selling online, or that you're presenting online, or that you're marketing online to sell in person. And in the case of some digital products, you may actually be able to sell, let's say, in a country like China. And in China now, they are quick to change policy and clamp down on certain things that can affect your business in a heartbeat. So you need to know what's happening politically. Similarly, here in Trinidad, we need to know what's happening. You need to keep your eye on it. And in any market you operate in. The E now is for economic, which goes without saying. What are the conditions that are suitable for you and for your target customer. It can vary, and you need to know what they are. The S is social. Do you know your customer? Really, really know your customer. Some people say, yeah, I know who my customer is, I know who buys my thing, or I know who's interested. But do you really know them? Or is it just your opinion? Having that look environmental and using the pestle tool can do that. T is for technological. How much technology does your operation need? This is your operations now. So different from digital, this is the technology that you're going to use to make your product and service or impact on it. How much do I need? And sometimes less is more. Sometimes you don't need to have the fancy system. You may need something simple to get yourself going. E is environment. That's becoming even more key. We just saw an environmental conference with our Prime Minister, and some of us may say, well, that's a lot of talk shop with some of these bigwigs, but it is becoming real. So, for example, some people would have complained, well, boy, all this cryptocurrency thing, I hear it's using so much servers and computers, it's bad for the environment. Guess what? They are pivoting too, and they're moving into energy efficient, carbon neutral footprints to generate cryptocurrency. But we could talk about that a lot more in another session. Legal is very important. And here you see I have the pestle example here. It's the same thing as pestle. The legal environment is extremely important. And with the legal environment, you need to know what hurdles exist. One of the things, for example, said about the Caribbean is our legal environment. We lack certain things that ease the flow of business. And you need to know what they are. If you're going to operate in Guyana, which is having an oil boom, what are you going to do and how does the legislation affect you? And the last one and most important one is the D, which is digital. Is your digital strategy integrated and customer focused? You have to live it, you have to manage it, and you have to listen to it. So with digital, taking all these things from PESTLE, all the PESTLE or PESTL, it's extremely important that you make sure that your digital strategy and it informs your digital strategy to fit. So using the PESTLE tool is extremely important. So in our next slide, what we can take a look at is a really simple tool that I put together. And for those of you who drop an email in our comments, we're going to send that tool to you free that you can use and just put together. And it actually integrates with my colleague to follow me, who's going to talk a bit about SWOT, right? SWOT. But basically, it takes the pestle analysis, takes that pestle scan, and it says, okay, what can I now put these areas into in terms of category, in terms of groupings? So, for example, if it's political, let's say we have a weak legal governing e-commerce framework, which may be true, or is trying to be corrected now. Is that a strength for me? Is that a weakness? What's the weakness there? What's the opportunity? What's the threat? And what action or contingency did I need to do to make sure that my business survives, or that my next action or as part of my business and my strategic playbook, it takes a very key part of my learnings from the pestle. So this is a nice simple tool we're going to share with you. So please drop your emails and drop your information, or maybe if you have a number, if it's WhatsApp, you can drop it in the comments and we will pick it up and we will send you that free tool that you can use. And it ties together very beautifully with all the things we're going to discuss today. So in a nutshell, I just wanted to throw that out there for you. The pestle is extremely important, and getting pestled with a D, with a digital in it, is extremely important for your business, which is that entity, that body, that living thing sitting down in that chair. Right now in the room next to you, if you're at home and your business at home, maybe it's still in your office, or maybe it's that chair that you could picture in your headspace. That person is there, that entity, that business is there. And making sure that you have a proper pestle analysis, that proper pestle scan with the D involved, the digital involved, will ensure that you have the best foundation for ensuring that your business can succeed in this world where we need to pivot in order to make sure that we can get the best for the future. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you, Randall. Get pestled. Okay, so Randall spoke to us about the environment. And the environment is made up of the political, the economic, the social, the technological, the legal, the environment. And he introduced a new one, which isn't all that new in terms of us knowing digital. But in terms of bringing it into the environmental scan, we can't leave out the digital. I want to ask our panelists if they have any comments to share based on what Randall just shared with us.
Hello, good afternoon. I can lead off.
Sure.
Sure.
I was thinking as Randall was sharing there about, we're talking about scanning the environment, and I'm wondering if persons listening would be asking, how do I get this information? Where do I start? Where does one get information about scanning the environment? And I think it speaks to a very important tool that individuals will need if they have to pivot, which is awareness. All right. We have to be aware of what's going on. I know, Randall, I remember one time sitting in a grocery car park and an individual, his car shut down, right? And it was one of those foreign European cars. And the mechanic that came to fix the car didn't look like a mechanic. He looked like someone from an IT office. He had a laptop on. He plugged it into the car. He went online and he started the car. All right? Awareness. So if you're not aware of the changes that are happening, let's say you're a mechanic and you're not aware of all the changes that are happening in that industry, you could see what's going to happen. You won't be able to make the pivot. So I don't know if there's any advice really that Randall could share in terms of where do you get information from? Where do we start?
Certainly, I can, Roll. Excellent point. And one of the things, for example, that is extremely key with the mix of looking at awareness and in terms of the whole pestle idea, you have to keep your eyes open, you have to keep your ears open, and you have to be prepared and willing to consume material, information, and really distill it to what you need. So, for example, some of the key areas are you need to keep on top of and in touch with what's happening with the government. The government produces different documents, sometimes legislation, sometimes other things that will give you or guide you as to what's happening in the area of your pestle or your your environmental scan. Similarly, there are financial news and other reports about territories or countries that you want to operate in, whether it be physically or digitally, and the demographics that you sell to. There's social trends, and there's a lot of material out there in terms of blogs that publish what's happening with the different target markets that you may be selling to. Reports on technology usage. What's the latest thing? Everybody may be hearing, depending upon your age, there's TikTok now, and TikTok is mature, and that's what young people, and they're moving on to something else already, right? Is that where you need to market? So what are the social trends out there? What's happening with the technology usage? What's happening with legislation? Also ethics, how things are changing. A lot of things people are driving, how you use data. You may remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal that happened in the US that involved us and talked about, using information on people on Facebook to try to affect elections, right? And finally, one of the other key areas is just generally other news reports with relevance to your company. One of the things I suggest to people, Google has a very good tool called Google Alerts, and there's other tools similar to it called news feeds, right? It's a news feed. And you can actually set up keywords that are relevant to your business. So for example, I'm in consulting, I'll put business, I'll put consulting, I'll put entrepreneurship, I'll put marketing, and I can make Google send me an update in my inbox as to news articles and pieces from all over the world on the internet as to what's happening. So it saves me time. So I would suggest that strongly as different ways you can scan the environment and make sure that you're getting the right information in terms of your personal analysis and your environmental scan.
Thanks a lot for that, Randall. And you used an interesting verb there. You said we need to distill the information. And I think that probably is where persons may not have that level of experience because, yeah, we know what's happening, we know what's the trends, but then they're not sure how to change this around and make it work for them. So can you speak to that?
Well, certainly there are two aspects of things that I always recommend where it comes to distilling information. First of all, it's not possible to do everything all by yourself. And we talk about this in some of our sessions. You have to, at different times, yes, you may be a solo entrepreneur now starting out, maybe you've been in it for a while, but you have to pull other people in to be able to assist you. Sometimes those people work in your company for you or work as associates or maybe consultants, not consultants, sorry, contract people. And then there are persons such as ourselves, consultants who can help you. And we can link and distill information for you on your behalf and put it together. And just generally as a simple kind of quick advice for persons who need to get something going right now for themselves, you really need to keep asking a question when you get information as to, okay, so what does this mean? And we do this a lot when we do sales training. When Roland and I have done some work together with sales training. Okay, that's great. You're telling me about all the benefits, all the features of your product and so on. But what are the benefits here? What does this end up being? And in the same way with information, okay, what does this mean? And okay, but what does that mean? And you keep asking that question until you get to the final point. And that will actually help you to quickly say, oh, you know what? I don't need this information because it's not going to impact me. And without even reading the article, just after reading the headline, you have made that analysis in a few seconds. That's the power of our brain, our thinking that we all have. And that can be very useful to you as a tool that you can use on your own right now. But of course, we also stand ready to assist anyone who needs that help in learning and practicing and getting all ready and ready to go on how to do this analysis and distilling information.
Yes. Thank you, Randall. Sheldon, do you have anything to add in terms of the PESTLE? You're on mute.
Right, yeah. As you had mentioned, the link between the PESTLE and the SWOT, right? And what Rose spoke about in terms of awareness, right? It's really important to understand the environment that your business is operating in, right? You must know, as he using the same imagery as Randall stated, as a person, right? That person is living in a particular environment, an environment that might either allow him to thrive, him or her to thrive, it to thrive, or an environment that might place certain restrictions upon the growth of that separate entity that you are trying to foster in terms of your business, right? So understanding the PESTLE and really using it as the raw material to work on your SWOT is really important.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thanks for that, Sheldon. I know that we will hear much more from you on the SWOT, and we look forward to that. But let me ask Alina, in terms of the environment, pivoting to profit, could you share one of your experiences over the last year and a half where you've taken from the science in the environment and made a pivot in your own area?
Just a touch before I share from an experience, and I want to remind persons out there that PESTLE analysis is not just for large corporate multinational entities. I really wanted to take a moment to make that point, because a lot of time micro and small entrepreneurs tend to have the assumption that's too big for me. I can't understand that. That's not for me. That's for the big company and them out there. No, it's for everybody. In terms of very simple things that you can do, even in terms of accessing information. Think about it. When you sign up for Twitter or Instagram or even Facebook, they ask you, what are you interested in? Well, maybe in addition to fashion and food and lifestyle and exercise, you could also put inside of there entrepreneurship and you put in the factors, the keywords that Randall shared with us. You start using those keywords. So as simple as it is, when you subscribe to these national companies, governmental agencies, even through your social media, you get a filter of links to documents that would redirect you to websites, redirect you to official documents that you could take your time and peruse. And even if you go to a website or you go to a ministry's website, there's usually a media center or there's usually a reel at the top of the website where they show you the most current affairs. Scroll through, take a look at what's happening. So I just really wanted to stick that pin in there to say it does not have to be an overwhelming experience, but rather you can use the tools that you already have access to within your current world to say, hey, I can use these things as a stepping stone to be able to start looking at my environment and internalizing what's going on. In specific reference to what you asked a moment ago, Simone, in terms of, for me, pivoting and looking at the environment, one of the things that really stood out was, even prior to COVID, was the change in terms of how people allocate their time and how they, let's look at the social aspects of things, how they interacted, what they were willing to do with their time. So in previous years, I would spend a lot of time doing events, planning events management, whether I did it for other clients or I put on events myself. And I started looking at the trends and I realized less and less people were willing to now take their time and go through the traffic and all the money to buy the clothes and all the drama to go to a conference. And for that reason, I started saying, hey, well, why can't we do this online? And so, even in a simple way at looking at what's happening external with my clients, with how society was evolving, with how we're interacting, not just with technology, but interacting with information, content, and experiences, I started making those shifts. So, from an events management perspective, which is part of what I do, I started saying, okay, if we're going to have the business conference, instead of bringing people in and then it's a problem when, because I'm based in South Trinidad, so sometimes it would be a challenge of people who are in the West or the East to say, oh, I wish I could come, but it's so far. Then all of a sudden, we're able to connect and say, oh, I could go online and I could access. And now, here it is, something that was a limiting factor for me in the business, being able to put on events was no more, simply because I took the time to take a look at what was happening, not just become overwhelmed or discouraged or say, oh my gosh, it's not working anymore, but rather to take that time or that opportunity to pivot, because that's what really it was. It was looking at what am I offering, what are the expected outcomes. Okay, this is no longer working in the way that I would like it to. So what aspect of what I'm doing can change so that way I could continue to engage my client base and still provide that service in an effective way, that in a way that they're willing to receive. Because as Arnold said earlier, it's about the customer. We have to think, what does the customer want? And so from that perspective, even outside of COVID, that's like a really quick, easy example I can give of a pivot taking place by simply looking at what's happening in the external environment in the events management space that I occupied.
Great. Thanks for that, Alina. Um, it really is important to identify what is happening in the environment to change. Otherwise, you could miss the customer completely. So
Yeah.
thanks so much. Yeah.
Yes, could I
And
add another, Simone?
yes.
Yeah, just before we break, I think it would be remiss of us if we did not connect with the issue of the environment, which is one of the E's, right? And the issue of carbon footprint and the issue of the heating up of the environment and what it's doing to us, particularly small states. If we look at the used car industry, we already see the impact of the environment because you have all these hybrid vehicles, all these electric vehicles. And I don't know if many of you were following the challenge with the used car dealers recently, and they're saying that they need incentives, right? They need encouragement to bring in, because they can't get the ability to access the traditional vehicles is getting more and more difficult. So this whole issue of carbon footprint is something that will impact all of us, whether in terms of the inputs into our industry or even in terms of what we are required as a standard to live up to. All right. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, something for all of us to, as business persons and those listening in, to consider as they're making their plans and moving forward. They need to consider the issue of the environment.
Yes, of course. Thanks, Roll, for that. Um, we want to move on to our next presenter this evening. And for those of you who may be now tuning in, you are tuning into Vision Work Solutions and their partners in this Pivot to Profit makeover, where we're looking to help persons to pivot to profit. And next we have a presenter who will be going into the importance of doing a pivot SWOT and how it can help us to get to that point of profit. Sheldon Blair. And Sheldon Blair is a senior monitoring and evaluation officer at Export TT. Export TT caters to the needs of all exporters and focuses on building internationally competitive firms, improving the business environment, and harnessing the differentiating factors that set Trinidad and Tobago exporters apart in the global marketplace. He's also director of one of the country's foremost business development institutions, the Timely Entrepreneur. Along with the institution's other business development officers at Timely Entrepreneur, they have positioned themselves with some of the best stakeholders in the community, along with business experts from around the world. They provide strategic development, growth plans, and a wide range of business solutions. Building upon a clear understanding of how the current environment impacts the choices that you will have to make to ensure that you deliver value and exceed your customers' expectations, we now take our focus inwards. And Mr. Blair, using the tried and tested SWOT approach, will use those elements to help us to examine how well we are positioned to take advantage of the opportunities that this new environment presents. The focus here will be on helping you harness your strengths and build capacity and skills to deliver on your chosen value proposition. Ladies and gentlemen, Sheldon Blair.
Hi, thank you so much, Simone. I'd like to begin with a quote from Winston Churchill. I was always fascinated by this particular quote. I didn't know it was his. He said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." He's the word good crisis. Now, we are in the midst of what has certainly been probably the greatest crisis of my lifetime. Churchill was talking about World War II. He was talking during World War II. And what came out of World War II was an entirely different infrastructure, an entire way of global organization, a new dawn, a new springtime for the world. So World War II ended in September 1945, just to give you some examples. And in October 1945, the UN was founded. And other organizations like the IMF and World Bank came together soon after, with Bretton Woods and all that. So it was really a momentous occasion, a crisis. You can either cry or you can be emboldened and see it for the opportunity that it is. And COVID-19 is a massive opportunity. In order to position yourself to boldly go where others fail to go, you need to contextualize, put everything in its right place to know where you stand in the midst of this particular environment that we are faced with, that your business is faced with, right? So as Randall mentioned with the Pascal, you do a scan of your environment to see what is actually happening, what is out there, right? You must have information to begin the journey. Information is important, right? To begin the journey. And what we do now is is probably an overuse, what people might see as overused, but this SWOT analysis is really a powerful tool, especially for moments like these, right? It's a tool that identifies your business's strengths, its weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's usually in a 2x2 matrix with the key areas of concern for any business. Now, you'll notice that it's 4 elements: strengths and weaknesses, which are elements that are internal to your business, and then opportunities and threats, elements that are in the external environment. So the elements that would have been spoken about in the PESTLE would really fit in really nicely under the opportunities and threats. Basically, you are looking at what was done before in terms of your business and where your business stands in relation to it, right? The internal forces that we mentioned, the internal elements, which would be your strengths and weaknesses. In terms of strengths, those are things that are positive that we could capitalize on or leverage or protect, right? Something that we can do very well today that could help us gain an advantage, elements like certain skills, resources, or knowledge that we already have in place. Those are things that we have control of, these internal elements, right? Weaknesses, on the other hand, those are the areas that are holding us back, that we need to either remove, mitigate, eliminate, or improve upon with the right effort. So, for example, we may have some problems with financing, right? That has been one of the major areas of weakness for smaller firms, particularly. You may not, you may have some issues with the type of personnel that you have, right? You may need a particular type of people with particular types of skills to do certain things. You may not have a good reputation, right? That would be a weakness. That's something internal that you could control, you could try to correct, right? You may have the age of your workforce may not be at the level where it needs to be. So, for example, if it is you saw a particular opportunity to transform your business, pivot in a particular way using technology, it might be a little bit more difficult based on the age of your current workforce. So things like that. So yeah, you are analyzing your business and you are trying to think of things internal that will affect your ability to execute any particular strategy that you might need to execute, right? On the other hand, when we look at opportunities and threats, so opportunities would include things like market trends, competitor weaknesses. There may be potential markets that are ripe for exploitation. You might be looking at exports. There's might be potential there. There might be opportunities in terms of how you structure your business, in terms of maybe partnerships or reaching out to other entities to do joint ventures and stuff like that. In terms of threats, right, things that fall within the political realm that basically your business has no direct control over. That will include both the opportunities and the threats. They just exist. And your response would be to either make adjustments or take advantage. In the event of those threats, you have to make adjustments, try to make adjustments for them. In the event of the opportunities, you try to leverage the strengths that you have to take advantage of those opportunities that exist in the market. So in terms of some of the other threats that may exist, they will include things like, besides the political, whether it be government policy, legislation, or just political instability as on a whole. That's one example of it. New technology that you yourself are not able to grapple with, that may change the dynamics of your particular industry or your particular market that you are invested in, right? Environmental issues, right? Those are generally, as it's stated, environmental, external to you, but your business could be affected, right? substitutes that exist in the market, right? So those are some examples of those 4 quadrants, and understanding them and getting the information, doing the internal introspection in terms of looking at your business, seeing the elements that are present, and then then determining where does this particular issue fall. Those are the key components of doing your SWOT analysis in the right way. What do you, so on the strengths, you ask yourself, okay, what do I do well? What unique resources can I leverage? Can my business leverage? Is it that I could use there was an example with a roti shop, right? When Rowley closed all fast food outlets, someone was crying out loud saying that, okay, no, I can't. What am I to do? I only make roti. The government has closed all fast food outlets. That's my source of income. How am I going to cope, right? But the strength in a situation like that is the fact that you have the ability to make roti, right? The opportunity that can present itself would be, okay, people still want to purchase this. Where are people able to purchase? And there's the opportunity. That's the question you ask. People still want what I produce, right? Because of an external threat, which was the lockdown, that totally cannibalized it. It basically closed off your normal business operation. You ask yourself, okay, what can I do well? I can make roti, right? Where are my opportunities? There's still people who want to purchase roti. So you ask yourself, where are people able to purchase? Where are people spending? And you go to one of the groceries or bakeries, and they sell your roti skins packaged in a different way, right? Understanding your strengths, understanding the source of your threat, understanding the opportunities that are available in the market will be a way, is a firm necessity for you to then determine what is your next step, right? What comes after the SWOT is determining your strategy, right? But the SWOT lays out everything very carefully to allow you to have those sort of insights and to make those linkages, make the linkage between the strength and the opportunity, make the linkage between seeing what the threats are in the market and seeing what strengths you have that you can, or resources that you can leverage, right, to take advantage of opportunities that will minimize those threats. And that's what SWOT analysis is. So it is a good exercise to really do this sort of analysis with every change in your environment, right? You reevaluate what is happening, right? We have a issue with shipping, supply chains disrupted because of factories being closed in Asia, right? So we have a backlog of orders. We have shipping containers that are that haven't they're like months behind, right? Off the coast of Los Angeles, there are containers stretching for miles, right? That is affecting some local producers, manufacturers who may be importing components for their particular products or whatever, right? That's a threat, right? You try to use what strengths you have locally. You may have a really innovative and resourceful team, right, at your company that could create different alternatives, right? So you might try to seek something locally. You try to see what is on offer local in the local market, what opportunities there are to access raw material locally, right? And you counter that threat by leveraging your strengths to take advantage of whatever local opportunities there are, or nearby opportunities external. You might decide, okay, well, let me check Guyana, let me check around Caribbean to see if I can get the same item that is outside of my reach now because of the disruption to the supply chain that we normally have, right? And that's the power of a SWOT, right? That's the power of being able to just look at your situation and honestly determine what are the elements that are missing, what are the elements that are weak internally, where you're best, what's your strong suit, and what are the opportunities right there. The reason why I would say that I would agree with Churchill that a good crisis is you never should let it go to waste, is that during times of crisis, opportunities tend to become even more pronounced because things are changing so rapidly that the old systems and the old structures break down. So new structures have to come in place to replace those old structures. And there's where the opportunity usually presents itself, with that recreation, with that creating something new out of what was old, what fell apart, what was restricted because of the crisis. Opportunities come out, right? So I go back to my initial thing. A crisis is something that you could either end up crying about or be emboldened about. And using the SWOT analysis will allow you to be bold, will allow you to take the correct steps to bring your business back to where it needs to be, to pivot, to change your business onto the right course and steer it away from whatever danger that the crisis itself would have brought.
Thank you, Sheldon. We've just heard from Sheldon Blair of the Timely Entrepreneur, who has walked us through the SWOT analysis, SWOT being SWOT, S for strength, W for weakness, O for opportunities, and T for the threats. And he expanded based on what we heard previously from Randall Douglas, talking to us about the environment. And we've seen now how doing the SWOT, which is really an internal look at your business, what is strong about it, what's attractive about it, that you can use to link with what is happening in the environment, always remembering that the change is happening. And Sheldon, I like the statement that you made when you said that, according to Winston Churchill, never let a good crisis or a crisis go to waste. So then what I get is that when we hear crisis, we shouldn't think or focus on the pain, but we should focus on the opportunity. And that opportunity will let us know, okay, this is how we can pivot. So if we can have all the panelists back on, just for you to share some of your thoughts based on what Sheldon just shared with us.
Yeah, I'd like to jump off again, Simone.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, from a pivot perspective, and connecting Randall's presentation and Sheldon, I think one of the key things for businesses who are persons tuning in to understand is that doing the PESTLE, looking at your environment, and is what helps you to stay ahead. So I think one of the pivots is you don't want to wait until certain things happen, but as much as possible, put yourself in a situation where you could respond and not always react. All right? In other words, we know, for example, businesses know that economies operate in cycles. You know, there's boom and there's recession. Businesses plan for this. They know and understand this cycle so that they know exactly how to move. So when, say, like a crisis like this came up, there were some businesses already said, okay, what's going to be needed? Medical supplies, sanitation, cleaning, and they just made that pivot, right? And for me, it comes to a very important skill set that is required, which is we have to see everything through the lens of opportunity. We have to have an opportunity, and Sheldon would have highlighted these things. We have to have an opportunity mindset. You understand? So no matter what comes, and he used the example of World War, and we can point to so many other things that have happened in the world where the world actually leaped forward. So if we have the opportunity mindset, it means we don't take as much time bemoaning the past, and we spend more time in responding. How do we respond? And it speaks to a very important pivoting skill set, which is flexibility and adaptability. And I'll leave it to the rest of the panel.
I agree with you. Flexibility, adaptability. And Roll, I just want to add one more to that, and that would be agility. When you said, we can't stay too long wallowing, crying over spilt milk, thinking about what has gone by. We really do need to be ready to move and be agile to get on with the change. And I like how Sheldon shared about the lady with the roti. And it reminded me of what Arnold said earlier. You have to believe in your product, and you have to look for that opening and then jump right in. I myself, I can tell you, I bought some dalpuri and basapshat in the grocery because I was missing my curry. So I did the stew, and I had the skins to go with it, and I was really impressed with the product. So right away, we see where persons can use their strength, and they have been using it to change, to pivot, to profit. I don't know if Alina wants to add anything.
Sure. I want to emphasize the importance of team and the importance of consulting. Many times, especially when we, as Arnold mentioned earlier, sometimes we really love the business and we love the way we created it. And when circumstances happen that cause us to have to make adjustments, it could sometimes be difficult. But don't beat up yourself if you find it challenging. This is the time where your team is there to help you. And whether your team is your board of directors, whether your team comprise of maybe the workers who, you've built a trusting relationship with in your office environment or your store environment, whatever. And if you feel like you don't even have that, listen, that is why consulting is there. That whether you go through Vision Work Solutions, Ingenuity, Business Development, Launchpad, Consultancy, Time Entrepreneurs, all the people here, even create your own narrative, helping you to discover the thing within and unleash it. Everyone here really represents an area of consulting that helps people when they're stuck and they need that third eye, that unbiased view, that skilled understanding to come and say, hey, as you look at your pestle, as you look at your SWOT, these are the things that you really should embrace. These are the things for your consideration so that it would empower you. So know that I just really wanted to contribute and say, know that you do not have to take the journey alone. This is why teams are important. This is why consultants are important, so that you can be equipped and empowered to have a perspective that maybe is not yet instinctive because of maybe where you are in your growth process. But as you allow yourself to be open to others, you can be empowered to make really great decisions and experience the sustainability you're looking for.
Thanks, Alina. I have to endorse that. There's a scripture that says, in the multitude of counselors, there's wisdom. And, once you come together in a space and you're thinking about the same item, you'll be amazed at the ideas that flows. But I want to ask Randall, because I know Randall is heavily involved in the space, helping people to find those avenues and those solutions. I'm sure, Randall, you would have had a story of your own. You may have helped an entrepreneur over the last year and a half, and they've experienced their pivot to profit using a strength that they would have had. Love to hear you share one of those stories with us.
Sure, Simone. And in fact, I'll give you a story and a half, just to sort of dovetail into my story. I'll just kind of take the thread and weave it a bit through what Alina said. And that whole idea of loving your business, our last session we spoke about, you have to love your business, but don't be in love with it. And one of the things is that people make that mistake where they love their business, but they're in love with it. And as we know, when you're in love, you're blind, just like if many of us may have been in a relationship or otherwise, when you're so in love with something, you miss things. And therefore, it's important that you're not in love with your business. You can love it, but don't be in love with it to be blind. An example of that, just quickly, personally, before I give into an entrepreneurial example story, is that when I was young and I was still working, I was working for Unilever, or Lever Brothers as we know it here. And we were all young executives, and we were sent on this presentation skills course. And this presentation skills course was not about PowerPoint, but it was about how to present yourself. And what the lady did, Eula Board was her name. At the time, I'm hoping that she's still alive and well, but I'm not sure. But she was brilliant. And what she did is that she actually recorded us. I'm dating myself here, well before we had cell phone cameras and stuff. This is using a video camera. She recorded us speaking. And most of us had never really looked at ourselves speaking. And by looking at ourselves, because she played it back for us to see on a screen, on a television screen at the time, and we were able to see our positives as she went through it and our areas for improvement. And that's one of the things for your business as well. You have to be able to step back and take with a critical eye, and usually sometimes pull someone else in who you trust to give you that opinion and say, okay, wow, I can do things a bit differently here, or I have something I can do differently in terms of how I present myself. And the same thing can be done for your business. And in that way, what we have been able to do, and certainly, and I'm sure many of us on this panel have done, is when you look at your clients and you look at your business, you have to then be able to tell them, how can you look at it critically and pivot? So obviously during the pandemic, I had customers and clients who would be like, well, wow, this may be the end of my business. I don't know what to do here and so on. And one of the things that is critical as a story, I won't call the business's name, but I had a customer who was selling physical products. And one of the things that they were doing is that, well, if I'm selling physical products and I can't sell it because the place that I normally sell it in is shut down, that's it for me. But guess what? Two things that it was very impactful. One is that they actually also made sure that they sold the things online. So they moved, as someone mentioned earlier, from that physical space into now a digital space. And the second thing they also did is that they also started to teach. They actually started to teach how to bake what they do, because they were involved in a hand based, it was craft based, making product, and that teaching gave them income, because they didn't have the skills that this person have. So sometimes we're afraid, oh gosh, if I teach somebody to do what I do, I'll lose my business. No, you are unique, and they still have that ability to deliver what they deliver, but everybody can express, and there's so much availability. There's room for everyone. And in teaching, they got people involved in doing their own little home things, and the person still turn around and bought from them anyway, right? Because they, of course, are the masters, the gurus, as we talked about in another session we had. So in that way, you can also do the same for yourself. Again, pivoting, but looking at your environment, using that SWOT to analyze yourself and looking at what's outside there to really make maybe look for opportunities and make that change and really capitalize on it to really realize that profit for yourself.
Okay, thanks so much, Randall. And Sheldon, the essence SWOT is the strengths, but we have to realize that the strength is what we need to pivot. So, I like to go back to the doubles example. Doubles is one of the popular street foods. But now, in terms of the environment, in terms of the pestle, the environment, the social side of it, the legal aspect, where we were restricted from gathering, it put a lid on selling your doubles. But the strength is that people love doubles. So persons were able to pivot, move away from selling it on the street to packaging it and selling it in the supermarket. So it's not just knowing your strength, but knowing how you can pivot it or adapt it, as Roel had said earlier, so that we really capitalize on it. So thank you so much, Sheldon, for that. Do you have anything that you want to say that we missed that you want to reinforce, Sheldon?
Unmute.
Sheldon,
Unmute again. We captured what I really want. I really wanted to focus on that the crying crisis. That's is your choice, right? You could cry, or you can be emboldened with the information that you deliberately put together, you seek out and you put together on your business in order to move forward.
Thanks for bringing in that focus. Thank you, panel. So I will continue on. And again, for those who may be now joining, you are viewing VisionWorks Pivot to Profit Makeover. This is all part of the Global Entrepreneurship Week and what VisionWorks Solutions and their partners, who are all in this space of helping entrepreneurs to make that profit, to bring their ideas to market and to do well at it. Our next presenter will be sharing with us a pivot business model, and he's none other than Mr. Roel Rollox. Mr. Rollox has been in the field of training, consulting, and business coaching for over 20 years, and he has supported and led organizational transformation, change, and development consultancies for key local and regional firms. Far from a one-size-fits-all approach, his diverse business experience allows him to employ systems thinking to identify strategic, tactical, and operational areas for better efficacy using the Dreamcatcher system. Incorporating tailored solutions, clients have experienced quick wins and followed through on medium and long-term initiatives to achieve personal and organizational targets and greater impact. Entrepreneurs, your business model captures how your business will make money. The current pandemic has made some business models obsolete and has forced change in the way goods and services are delivered and how revenue and profits are generated. Mr. Rollox will take us through a process that will help you choose the best model that fits your business and customers in a way that maximizes profits for the new future. Let's hand over to Mr. Roel Rollox.
Simone, thank you for that great introduction. And certainly thank you to my fellow panelists who have shed so much light on areas that contribute to developing a business model, And for all of you that are listening in, I encourage you to be open-minded. And that's a critical skill set that is needed if we are to be able to make that pivot. So diving right into the question of a business model. Now, what is a business model? And there are many different ways that we can approach it. And as we look at the slide that we have coming up, you would understand that a business model captures the value, right? It captures the value that your business is supposed to create. So we take the pivot, pestle, all that information, we take the information about our SWOT, and we build it into a model that helps us to create value and ultimately make money for all of the stakeholders involved in your business, including yourself, of course. And we call that value profit in that case, right? So in terms of coming up with a definition, all right, of what is a business model, the following slide kind of captures all the essential points. So a business model is really a description of how your business creates value and all the steps and processes that are involved to do so. Some critical questions come up, and these are some questions that an effective business model will answer, right? What do you sell? And of course, this seems obvious until we come to the second one. What value it creates. And I give you a perfect example of the pivot that is needed. Both Toyota and Audi, all right, they both sell cars, right? But when it comes to creating value, right, this is probably one of the most fundamental shifts that's taking place now. It's two very different entities. One is about luxury, the other one is about affordability and convenience. And I know you know which, all right? Of course, Toyota has a range, but generally it's seen as in two very different markets. So one of the things questions you need to ask yourself is, what am I selling? In other words, and what value does that item or product or service that I offer create? So I may be selling doubles, but what am I selling? Once we begin to ask and understand this question, it goes a long way. The whole idea of being able to be part of a local culture and to get food conveniently, all those are the elements that are really important. The other question that the business model raises is the question of who you create the value for. And when we look at a lot of the business models today that have emerged, we realize that oftentimes we have a very multi-sided view of our business. In other words, the business can create value for different types of individuals. If we take Facebook, for example, you would realize that Facebook creates value for those who want to be social, want to connect, want to share about what's happening. But Facebook also provides a platform for those who want to advertise to those individuals. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes we have to really sit and take another look at who we create value for, and we will find other opportunities in our business model. Of course, using the Facebook model, again, when we look at who pays, in reference to the Facebook model, you'd realize that it comes free to us as users, but persons who want to advertise and to use it, get information from it, they have to pay. So that's an example of how it can work. Ultimately, there's a question about how you pay, and that can happen in various forms. Whether you pay monthly, whether you pay in subscriptions, whether you pay one lump sum payment, whether you pay over a lifetime. All those are the questions that the business model attempts to answer. And if we look at what has been happening globally, we'll see some examples of how business models have changed. You understand? Before we look at the local examples, just look at what has happened internationally. You'd realize that we have car companies that don't own a vehicle. Uber, at one time, and I know they've been challenged in recent times, was the world's largest taxi company. All right? Airbnb was the largest accommodation provider. Right? So, Alibaba created the greatest value in terms of being a retailer, but it did not own any of the inventory. If you look at the examples here, you'd realize, think about Netflix, right? At one point in time, and Netflix, of course, gone into producing their own films, but at one time, they never owned a movie house. They never owned a production equipment. So it begins to give you a sense of some of the possibilities, the things that you can do once you understand the environment and you understand your strengths. So earlier we were looking at some local examples of how some businesses have had to pivot their business model, right? On the right hand there, we see the example of the doubles, all right? So in this case, the doubles was packaged and placed in a convenience store, all right, and made available to individuals. On the left-hand side, we see quite a number of local processed foods, foods that you can store and then reheat, all right, or add other ingredients to it. Let's look at the other slide. We'll even see where Rituals on the right-hand side, all right, package the coffee to make it available rather than you going into the store. So you see what I'm saying? We have to be looking at the environment and looking at these changes and be ready and equipped to make the changes that we need to make. So let's use an example let's look at a hairdresser, right? The typical hairdresser, and you will see that in the next slide, all right? In terms of making money, the typical business model is that the hairdresser will exchange the time and energy spent to help someone with their hair for money for being paid. All right. In today's business environment, we can add so much more to it. Just think about it. That hairdresser can add other hairdressers and have a salon. So that means they're adding other chairs. That's a business model. That hairdresser can pivot into selling hair products. That's yet another business model. So you're getting the idea that there's also the concept of multiple streams of income that come into play when we're talking about building a business model. That very same hairdresser can determine who they want to sell to. They can retail their items, they can wholesale their items. You see some of the ideas that are coming up. A hairdresser can even be an influencer. And that's a big thing in this current environment where you can be online promoting particular products and being paid. That hairdresser can also create an environment for other hairdressers to sell products and sell their wares, all right, and get an advertising fee. So these are just some of the examples, all right, of what's possible when we decide to pivot our business model, right? Some of the key elements in the business model would be who is our customer, what is the value we're trying to create, and how does a business operate, and how does a business make money. So if we look at the next slide, we look at the whole idea of putting it together. This is where you have to look at your cost structure and combine that with the various revenue streams. And in this case, we see with having a vehicle, the various revenue streams that can come out from that vehicle alone. All right. And this is what of the thinking that happens when you are able to put your business model down. It allows you, with support, to look to see very different ways of which you can make money than the traditional. All right. So let's look at some elements of a strong business model. So you'll find that business models today have some pretty interesting things that they focus on. Can you build a model where you have recurring revenues? In other words, the person doesn't only buy from you once, but they buy from you several times. All right. Another big part of it, and I'm laying the foundations for a discussion later, is the whole idea of leveraging. All right. Using other people's energy, time, and money. This is something that big businesses do all the time. Microsoft, for example, puts out a product. We use it. We have issues. We write back. We say, this is the problem. Microsoft makes the adjustment. We become their research. So they're using our energy and our time, all right, to create a business model. Then there's the whole idea of switching costs. Is it easy to switch from the offering that you have to another? And quite a number of businesses have been able to use this effectively to capture and to keep their customers, because it's not as easy, all right, to transfer to another customer. And you'll see that maybe with if you're using a certain type of printer, a certain type of equipment, it's not as easy, all right, to move on. So those are some key elements there. Of course, the whole idea of earning rather than spending, all right, which is really big, where you can have the client's order and then you either manufacture on demand rather than storing in a storehouse and incurring the cost of inventory. And ultimately, can your business scale by using almost the same amount of cost in terms of staffing and marketing input? Can you sell more? All right. So those are some important elements that you'd want to consider in putting together your business model. So ultimately, there's a very useful tool called the Business Model Canvas, and it captures all that we just spoke about. And it's something that we are available to help you with. You see, it speaks about the key partners, the persons that you would want to engage in your business, whether they are vendors, suppliers, staff, strategic alliances. All those are important. What are the key activities in terms of breaking down your processes? What are the resources you need to deliver? What's your value proposition that sets you apart and unique? What's the relationship you want to build with your clients? What are the channels you're going to use? What are the various segments? And these are all supported by the cost structure and the revenue streams. So by having a business model like this on paper, you can begin to tweak the various elements until you arrive at a profitable position. And that's one of the main advantages of it. So in summary, I like to say that pivoting demands a focus on value creation today. It's not just about the product that you sell, but the value you create. And the easier you can get to understanding the value you create, and you can then package that so that the customer understands, then you're on your way to pivoting your business model. Business models have changed, and the business model canvas can certainly help you make that pivot. And of course, as partners, we are here to help. So that's what I like to share on the business model, just to encourage everyone to understand that it's time to relook your business model. So take some time and look at these important elements, and you're on your way to pivoting your business model. Thank you.
Pivoting your business model. Thanks, Roel, for that. And we can have the panelists back on the screen now so that we can all jump in to talk about some things that Roel shared. Roel, one of the things you said early on was we need to be open-minded. That's one of the first criteria in order to pivot to profit, right? And one reason is because business models have changed. And like Sheldon said, once you're open-minded and a crisis happens, you can focus on the opportunities once you're open-minded.
Yes. Yes, certainly. Being open-minded is key, and having that perspective of seeing the opportunity, or at least looking and knowing that the opportunity must be there. And once you continue to look and investigate all the various elements of your business model, you can tweak it to arrive at a place where it's profitable for you and values created for the customer. So very, very important.
I know sometimes persons might be not too sure about the interpretation of value creation, right? And so could you just go a little more into value creation and how we consider or should see value?
Certainly, certainly. You see, if you are not aware and understand the value that you're creating as a business, which goes beyond just the sell, right? The value you create goes into the benefits of the sell. All right. So two of us can sell mugs, but I can sell a mug to an executive because of how I package it. All right, what what kind of graphics I put on it, the kind of package I put it into. All right, and I create a value of feeling important and being executive. So someone is proud to hold that mug. So you see what I'm saying? So understanding what value creation means can help you make those tweaks to look at different market segments. Maybe you can take that mug, the idea of selling mugs, and sell it in different market segments. All right. So that's how one of the ways in which value is seen. A big thing today is to understand the value of convenience. And that's one of the most important values that persons are looking for. Right now, we're online, all right? And we're talking to persons all over Trinidad and Caribbean, we would hope, right? Right, guys?
Yes.
Right? And anyone can see it. So see this. So what we're offering here, apart from the information, is the convenience of it. All right. So once we understand these elements, we could begin to tweak. How can I revisit or repackage or relook at my model to make sure that it provides convenience? All right. So those are some examples of how it can work.
Okay. So let me ask the panelists to jump in here based on what Roel shared. What would have resonated with you, especially in light of the current pandemic, which really has forced us to look at things in a different way? And like Roel talked about, the business model has changed.
Yeah, I would just want to jump in real quick and encourage people to not be afraid of the niche. You know, sometimes in making adjustments and desiring the grander, sometimes you want to be all things to all people. And to be successful, you don't have to be all things to all people. So, like for instance, I knew of a contracting firm who specialize in maintenance to medical centers because they knew the protocol and how to operate and how to function in a medical center and working in the theaters and operating in different hours because you have to give consideration to the patients and all these kind of things. And that's just what they did. They did renovations to medical centers because they over time they developed the expertise in that. So even though they didn't have another client base that filled them up, it took all their time and their goals were being met because they were focused on a niche. And I'm not saying everybody should only have this very specific niche, but I'm saying as you think about making adjustments, I want to encourage people to consider you do not have to be all things to all people. But as you look at how you want to pivot and how you want to adjust your business model, maybe it is possible that there is a niche for you based on your specialization that could work really well and cause you to expand and grow the business in a way that helps you to achieve your goals.
Simone, can I make an expansion to that?
Sure.
You know, it's something that I know Randall and I, who do consulting from time to time, when we look at the environment, and I like the point that Alina raised, all right? If we take a look at the environment, we realize that persons in the medical sector, in the health sector, all right, that's an opportunity there, all right? And there's an opportunity in many different ways. Apart from medical supplies, all right, medical health centers have needs, private and public, all right? So if one is looking at the environment and doing the environmental scan that Randall spoke about, and then looking at the particular strength, they may realize, I can do construction and renovation work in the health sector, or I can do medical supplies in the health center, or maybe I can offer a special for hairdos for persons in the medical sector. You see what I'm saying? So if we follow what we've been sharing today, it gives some opportunities for persons to look at their skill set and take advantage of all that's happening in the health center. Pretty recently, I spoke with someone who discovered that there was a need in terms of repair because equipment was being used so often. So because of his skill set, he was able to pivot his repair skills to repair medical equipment. So I'm happy that Alina brought up that example.
If I could interject, I wanted to kind of focus on the flexibility part of the business model, right? I think in the past, we had the concept of a business model as something that was static, that was fixed. You just work out how your business operates, and then that's it. You lock shop, you lock up everything, and you just work that, right? But they can't have that approach anymore, right? The whole issue of flexibility, adaptability, and agility, all those elements must be components of your business, not just a way of doing. So your business now shouldn't be considered as a series of things that you do, right? Things that you can do right now, but it's really more. It's a broader view of what your business is. Your business entity is a collective of capabilities, right? A collective of in existing in an environment that has many opportunities and threats. Your model now must be such that your business must be such that you can tweak your model, right? Like to tune up your car, you tweak your model, right? To really shift and move with the market with the changes. So you can't consider your business as something that is static, your business model now. You can't consider that as something that is static. And you work out things once and you just run with that for 5 years or whatever. Right? That's what this whole crisis has been telling me a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know for quite some time, previously businesses may have done 5-year plans. Then it came down to 3-year plans. And now the time span is even shorter. Have you realized something similar, Randall, in terms of, the marketing aspect, that you can't plan for very long periods? It's now something that's much more narrower.
Certainly. I mean, in addition to doing marketing plans, I also do business plans as well, and I do some work with Roll as well in that area. And definitely the time frames have shifted. In fact, one of the things that we have seen and in fact advocated to our clients is the concept of ruling strategy. And the idea there is that you have strategic, you may do a plan, and the business model canvas, as Roll illustrated, is a really beautiful, tight, but easy to use way that you can capture a plan and its elements. But then you're not just going to say, okay, I'm going to put it on the shelf and revisit this in a year, 2 years, whatever it is. You are actually now, and that's one of the concepts that I mentioned earlier in terms of the playbook. So we have
Yeah.
developed this concept of a shorter version, simple distilling of it, bullet points with some little explanations that really now you can use on a day-to-day basis. Literally have it at the side of your desk, have it on your computer, have it on your phone. And so people are using this concept of that ruling strategy to say, what's happening? What's happening with my strategy now regarding my operations? What's happening in my workplace or in my target network? What's happening online? What's happening in all these spaces? And how can I adjust quickly to do it? So that's where now it's really critical to have a good foundation. So you know what your plan was, you know what you're operating with, but you're making your course corrections. And one last example I'll give of that, I learned from another consultant, is that when they were making the trip to the moon, right, and the rocket was going there, it just didn't go straight up in the air and land on the moon, you know. All along the way, they had to make hundreds of thousands of corrections because
Just
we had changes to the environment in terms of the atmosphere, you know, more cloud cover, less cloud cover, difference in terms of the air pressure at different points. While they were in space, different things happening. So you never get one way to your destination without making little slight corrections. But you must have your destination in mind, and you must know the vehicle that you're going to be moving and flying or and moving in. So in the same way, using business models, business plans, the business model canvas, using strategic playbooks and as we've developed and things of that nature, and making it in a way where it's that robust kind of re-looking at it on an ongoing basis can really help you to achieve that long-term goal.
Yes, Simone, I'm
thank you.
happy that Randall mentioned that too, and he brought in his pestle the idea of digital. And this speaks to the point that Sheldon made about adaptability and flexibility. You'd realize in the examples I shared Airbnb, I shared Netflix, I shared a couple of these organizations that are now very massive, but they're largely digital. All right, even even Uber really is a software system that connects drivers. That's really what it is. And
Mhm.
because it's digital and that's a big part of their business model, it allows them to flex if things change. So imagine what's going on to a lot. You're going to see a lot of these businesses re-emerge with different features and different elements. So certainly an encouragement to businesses out there is to add a digital element. So for example, if you add a hairdresser, consider the whole idea of being an influencer. Consider doing a mastermind program, right? Consider a stream of income that comes from a digital source. So that when you have challenges in other areas, it's easy for you to flex and make more money with other income streams.
Right.
And I just wanted to
Thank
add
you.
one thing, Simon. Sorry about that.
Sure.
What Roel said.
Yes.
In the examples he gave with Uber and Airbnb and so on, there's an important element I think everybody needs to recognize. Uber, Airbnb, and so on, they are a large conglomerate company, you know, by global standards, no doubt. Any of these examples. But guess what? They are working with micro entrepreneurs, right? The person
Ah,
renting out their guest house or their home,
yes.
that person, just like here in Trinidad, they're an entrepreneur. The person who is the Uber person driving the vehicle, they're an entrepreneur, they're a
Yes.
private individual. So in the same way, you here, right here in Trinidad, one, you can take advantage of that by becoming a micro entrepreneur in one of these systems. Or two, if you develop your own system where you're then tapping into, just like we have some local examples such as Deliver Me TT, which is one of our local rideshare people and so on, similar to Uber. You now can employ people and make them entrepreneurs and use them and they're entrepreneurs for your business. And that can be applied to so many different business models. So don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. Don't be afraid. You can use those business models right here. It's being done. And you could be part of it or you can create it and
Yes.
utilize people around you to build that success for you as well.
Yes, thank you. And very important with the that business model that you're talking about, Roll. And in terms of Randall saying that we can use it right here. When Uber exited Trinidad and Tobago, we know that persons jumped on. You have rideshare, you have TT Ride, you have different models that people have been employing because of the business model. And Raul, we thank you for sharing those nuggets in terms of having a business model to help us pivot to profit. It's not just about scanning the environment, it's not just about knowing your strengths, but you want to be able to offer business and have repeat business and sustainable business, and of course, profitable business. And that in itself takes us to the next segment, which is talking about the pivot roadmap. A pivot roadmap. And to present that to us is Alina Lewis, who is in her role as a business coach since 2008. She has mentored numerous entrepreneurs, guiding them through launching, revamping, even restarting their businesses. And with over 14 years of experience in business management and having spent the past 11 years as an entrepreneur herself, she's well known for her ability to create interactive learning environments, and her success is testament to her proven track record of successful and satisfied clients. Holistic support is offered to her clients as Alina works with individuals from the concept stage to sustainability. Using a developmental approach, she assists clients as they prepare for launching, expanding, as well as revamping their business. Depending on the specific needs, clients also benefit from assessments through her consultation. She enables and empowers by providing an opportunity for persons to think critically. Ms. Lewis, the founder and principal coach at Launchpad Consultancy, she says that the best of strategies and plans remain only dreams if they are not executed effectively. And in this final session, Ms. Lewis will help us identify the critical next steps needed to move from a pivot plan to a pivot reality. Ms. Lewis will help us connect the dots and demonstrate how to develop an action plan, drawing upon all that we have learned today. Let's welcome Alina Lewis.
Second series here at Pivot to Profit webinar series, and we're looking at the makeover. And so for me, I'm super excited to be here because in my role, it's all about the practical steps. I'm loving everything that was shared, and I too have really been soaking it in, even as we started off with Arnold Best this evening, reminding us to put the customer first and really pay attention to the needs of our customers. We had Randall Douglas share with us about Get Pascal, looking at the external environment and adding a digital component. We had Sheldon Blair talk about the SWOT analysis, looking at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then Roll coming in with reminding us about the importance of the business model and even recognizing the importance of even being able to pivot with the type of model, and even Randall talking about that rolling strategy. And so even now, I want to be able to share some simple steps, actually 6 steps that we could take, whether you're a micro entrepreneur, you're a small and medium enterprise, whoever you are, wherever you are, 6 simple steps that we can all take when we consider the whole idea of pivoting. And just for a quick reminder, when we think about what does it mean to pivot, we're reminded that a pivot means fundamentally changing the direction of a business when you realize that the current products or services are not meeting the needs of the market. The main goal of a pivot is to help a company improve revenue or survive in the market, but the way you pivot your business can make all the difference. And even as we look at the pivoting makeover, we could really connect it there, because the way we do it can make all the difference. And even as we jump in and we consider that step 1, I want to remind us, let's think about a step 1 as focus on the feet here. What's the feature are we taking into consideration when we start exploring the need to pivot? Is the feature something that is prompted by an element in the pestle we learned about? Is it prompted by the political, the environment, the legal, the social, whatever, or even digital transformations taking place in society? What is prompting it? Or maybe is that step one being prompted for you by something you recognize as a change in your SWOT? When you think about your strengths, your weaknesses, or maybe opportunities and threats in the market, what's the feature? What is it about your operation that you're going to say, hey, this is the key, or this is the thing, or this is the focus that I'm going to use for being able to make the change that is needed? And if I may, allow me to make a reference really quickly, even to our earlier session. We had a session 1 on Tuesday. And one of the things we said is that let's remember pivoting, while it can be reactionary because there is crisis, pivoting can also be sparked as a proactive approach as part of your business development. And I really want to bring that back into focus. And when we think about the feature, it's not just about the crisis. It's not about I'm just going to change it up because something has gone wrong. But keep in mind, as you continue to work towards sustainability of your business venture, that you also want to be proactive, looking at your PESA, looking at your SWOT, and focusing on that feature that you want to make impact or make changes through is going to be critical as the starting point. Think about it as your seed. That's the seed that you're using at this time to be able to pivot. And once you've identified the seed or the feature, we want to be able to then choose adjustments that align with your business. And how do we choose those adjustments? By keeping in mind what the presenters earlier said. We want to consider the external environment, and we make adjustments to suit those details. We want to consider our internal workings. Let's look at those strengths and those weaknesses. And Sheldon went into great detail there. And we're going to make adjustments that align with the business. We're choosing adjustments that align even with the evolved business model that we're thinking about. So when we're choosing adjustments, here's the key. We're not looking at solely about what another business entity is doing and say, let me copy that. Or we have a colleague who owns a business as well, and they say, boy, girl, this is what's happening, so let me try it too. No. We're looking at our own internal workings and how it relates and connects with the external environment. And then when we consider that seed, that feature that we're going to change, we're going to say, okay, how does this intended change align with what's going on with my business? And when you're able to answer that question, it really opens the door to make sure you're not making decisions because we're just copycatting, but we're making decisions that are going to be tailored based on our business model, our business need, as a reflection of our SWOT and based on our understanding of the pestle as we've gone through before. Yeah? And then once we do that, step 3 says, let's identify the target audience and the problem we are trying to solve. We want to go back and forth. Remember, I reminded us, Arnold Best said earlier, the customers matter. What is going on with the customer? What is that problem we're trying to solve? So when I look at my process, so let's say, for example, let's hypothesize for a moment. Let's say we're into food manufacturing and COVID hit. We said, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So let's take a look at it and let's see how it would work, because we're doing a makeover here, right? But hypothetically speaking. So step 1, we're focusing on the feature. What is it that we're looking to make impact? In this case, we're looking to make impact in our ability to continue to provide some sort of a food product so we could continue to earn our revenues. Once we've dealt with that, we want to choose adjustments. Now, we used doubles a lot earlier today, right? But let's maybe use something else as an example. Let's say we were producing we're a catering company making meals for schools, and the schools are closed. And we say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? The schools are closed. There is no active contract going on. I have no orders to fulfill. But when I think about pivoting and I say, what adjustments can I align with my business? This is me saying, how do I utilize my personnel, my equipment, my skill sets, whatever linkages I have, my relationships, to be able to still optimize the use of all these resources I have, but to use it in a different way. Remember that seed? We want to use it in a different way to ensure that the business remains sustainable. So when we're thinking through that, we're going to say, boy, what problem can I then solve through this adjustment that I'm going to make? The schools are closed. We don't have any students to sell food to, but we could say, boy, there is a problem. With COVID, all of these nurses and these police officers working overtime and they're hungry. And then we're under state of emergency, so they can't go to KFC to buy food anymore. So here's what. Why don't we get our foot in a door that says we can then use all of our equipment and our resources to now make that adjustment and be able to pivot, to be able to solve a different problem using existing skills. So we see how we could make it over. Now your business may be catering, your business might be something else, but the process can still work for you. And then step 4, we want to analyze the competition. Have we seen evidence of anybody else thinking about this? Are we seeing opportunities where maybe a service provider, decision maker is realizing, oh boy, we have all these security officers still needing to work and we're going to need this. Is there anyone else providing it? At what cost? How are they getting it done? Analyze the competition, analyze what's going on, because we want to make sure that before we launch out, we are putting in place the necessary protocols, strategies, and systems needed to make the adjustment a successful adjustment. And once we've analyzed our competition, we then want to tailor our new strategy to maximize our strengths and weakness. So if we were to consider our hypothetical catering company and we say we want to tailor, then we have to look at how do we now use our personnel, our building, our equipment, our resources. Because remember, we were cooking for children before. So now we might have to say, oh, I wonder if my cooks can now create meals for adults, or what kind of meals do these adults need? So I need to tailor the recipes that I come up with, or maybe the way I put together the meal packages. There's so many things that we could tailor, but the point is when we take a step back and we say, okay, how can I now tailor the strategy to maximize the strengths and really overcome weaknesses, then the opportunities and threats that exist with this new plan could really be dealt with in a way that works well for the business, that works well for the customer, and we could be able to create an alternative plan to step forward into this new arrangement that we have. We could now create a plan that says, okay, this is the problem. These are the changes that we've made. This is what the environment through the Pascal has said. This is what an analysis of our strengths and weaknesses tells us we can and cannot do, or how we could do it. Let's now come together and use our team, whether they're internal, whether we're dealing with the coach, the business coach, or the business mentor, or we even meet with our employees and say, let's pool our ideas together. We come together now to solidify the plan, and then we do what? We launch, because step 6 now is the launch, where we take all of the information that we've pulled together and we say, let's now make it happen. And making it happen doesn't necessarily mean you just run into the company and go deliver the food or the new product or whatever it is that you're doing. But it means launching here means now taking the steps to be able to embrace whatever is the new arrangement that you're having. And it could mean understanding the impact it would have on your administration, the impact it would have on your accounting, the impact it would have on maybe a changing marketing that you would need. Whatever it takes, reaching out to the right persons, you want to make sure that launching includes the systems and the processes, so that way as you move forward, you can be successful. So I know I talked about catering, but I just want to very generally mention just one or two. It could be the use of equipment that you could make a pivot. If you offer services and maybe your store was closed, you couldn't open up, pivoting could have meant analyzing that change to say, okay, I can't bring people into me, but maybe I can offer personal services. Maybe I could look at how my janitorial service that I do can change. If I was a hairdresser with a salon, how can I change and maybe offer a personal services? What about products? If it is we're selling products and we realize, even as Roel mentioned, we're dealing with cleaning and sanitization. Now, if you're in that industry and maybe your store as it used to couldn't open, how can we pivot and adjust? What is the feature we're going to adjust? Is that we're adjusting who we're selling to, where we're selling, how we're selling? What if you're in retail? What is the feature you're going to adjust? Because maybe your store couldn't open for a period of time, but you realize you could now sell online. You could now do delivery service. So the summary there is to recognize there is no one business only for being able to pivot. But once we follow the process, and let's just hit a summary real quick. Once we focus on the feature, we choose the adjustments that align with our business, identify the target and the problem we're trying to solve, analyze our competition, and tailor the strategy to maximize our strengths and overcome our weaknesses. Then we're able to launch into that new business experience so we could continue to embrace success in our business and entrepreneurial journey each day. Thank you, guys, and thank you, Simone.
And thank you, Alina, for connecting all the dots for us there. We started off with looking at the PESTLed and then moving on to the SWOT, talking about the business canvas, and then Alina brought things together home with the roadmap, which is so very important because sometimes we get all the groundwork right and together, but then how exactly do we launch? What exactly do we start with? And what else needs to be considered? And Alina was able to put all of that together for us. Alina, can you just bring everyone back? Yes, so we can have persons sharing their comments. Roel, I know you are always eager to jump off first.
Yes, I felt it was really, really important, to, the way in which Alina put it all together for us. I think it was really important to emphasize that there are steps and there is a roadmap. What I'd like to add to the roadmap is that the roadmap is also iterative in the sense that sometimes we may begin at point 3 or point 4, or sometimes we may reach point 3 and realize we have to revisit the feature. Because by the time we get to look at our strengths, we realize it doesn't match with the feature that we chose. So we now have to look at a different feature, right? So I think that also will help persons to know that it isn't always a linear process, 1, 2, 3, 4, but all those critical elements are there. And what you need to do is to go back and forth until you arrive at a place that value is created for your customers and you can continue to live on profitably.
Okay. Thank you for that, Roel. Sheldon, Randall, you have your thoughts.
Sheldon, you want to go first?
Well, just to say that every entrepreneur journey is different, and there was someone who during a presentation he said that he never gives specific advice to entrepreneurs because every journey, every business is different. Every business will face a different environment. It will have a set of different attributes. The owners of the business and the team behind the business will have a different set of attributes, assets, or whatever. So there cannot be one way of looking at things. right? And that is what this whole process just reminds me of. It's a journey. You're going down along a road, and you need to mind your business literally. Otherwise, you will go off course, and you wouldn't be able to complete the journey. So I just wanted to share that
Yeah.
little analogy.
And when you say that, Sheldon, it reminds me of what Alina started with when she said, choose a feature. So you gentlemen here and Alina, you're all involved deeply career entrepreneurs, so that you would know that what you might focus on, although you're in the same space, will be different to someone else. So that there is still that element where you can have a business model. But what I'm hearing is that it has to be flexible and it can't be cast in concrete, so that even if you share something with someone, they have to know, you have to spread your wings and see it, test the ground, to explore it fully and make it your own, to really own it. And I see that this is how the business canvas can work, because it's a personalized thing that you're working on. And when I say thing, I mean your area, your scope, your specific thing, that to bring it to life. So, but thanks for that, Sheldon. Definitely noted. And it's important for the entrepreneurs who are listening. Don't think, oh my gosh, I don't have a business canvas, or, but I think I reached point five and I launched already. That's fine. Like Roel pointed out, it's an iterative process. And as Randall said earlier, and when missiles are going after a target, every step they move, they're adjusting. And that's one thing that you need to understand. You have the flexibility, you can adjust. You just don't want to go too far out and off of the target. And that's one good reason why, from time to time, it helps to have a professional in the field, to have an expert who's been there, who's done that, who've trained and assisted other persons and coached them and mentored them, such as Vision Works, a timely entrepreneur, Ingenuity Business Development, and of course, Launchpad Consultancy. So, Randall, you wanted to share something?
No, just brief. Well, yeah, sorry. Yes, I did. Just briefly, to add or to emphasize something Alina said. Uh, in terms of what her presentation was dealing with steps and what the next steps are. And some people may say, well, isn't that what the business plan is supposed to cover? And it's different. And I just wanted to emphasize that part, because you can have a plan. Think of it like building a house. You have a blueprint for a house. It's a beautiful blueprint. It has all the drawings, the plans, and how it's going to look and so on. But the house has to be built, right? And you have to take certain steps. You have to hire workmen, workers, different people. You have to get materials. All of that is, yes, part of planning, but it's also part of an important word, execution, delivery.
Yes.
And that is one area that, of course, we work hand in hand with a lot of individuals with, in terms of either teaching them. I'm a great believer in teaching to fish, not just giving fish, and I think all of us are. So while we assist you and we can help by giving you fish, we also teach you to fish, because the more that you're able to fish on your own is the more that you can succeed, and you will come back in terms of, if you need to get additional help for us to learn new skills, and as your business grows. So I just wanted to emphasize that point though, about that in terms of working any plan, you have to take certain steps in order to make it a reality. And that's important to not just think about, oh, I've done a plan and it's okay. No, what are the specific steps, the things that I have to do to make sure that I can realize all of these objectives and goals and dreams?
Yes. Great. Roel, you have any closing words before I move to Alina? This was her presentation. I don't know if she wants to leave us with something.
Yes, I'll leave the final words to Alina. I'll just add, I found Randall, that analogy, that's such a powerful analogy, because it's true. You can have a blueprint for a house, but there's so many ways to go about building it. All right? How much members of laborers you're going to use, what you're going to do first. And this is really where our team can help. And in fact, one of the things we want to put on offer is an actual roadmap ebook template, which we're going to make available for persons who are interested. You can say so in the comment section, reach out to us on Facebook, message us. and we will respond. We will get back to you, all right, with your own copy of this ebook that can help you in building that roadmap. So I just want to say thank you to everyone else here, and all those listening in, and I'll leave the final comments to Alina.
I really, even as I consider everything, and I mean, great job to the entire panel. This was an awesome session. So happy to have been here with all of you. But I would like to encourage viewers to release perfection and embrace progression. I'll say that again. Release perfection and embrace progression. Because sometimes our desire for the perfect business scenario before we make a move and get done what we need to get done, we're so busy waiting on it and we get nothing done. We get stuck, we get overwhelmed. Release perfection and embrace progression. And certainly, every element of what every presenter on the screen has really shared tonight allows us to have the information that we need to do that business pivoting makeover so we could embrace progression in a COVID recovery world and beyond. So, thank you guys.
Thank you, Alina. And thank you to all our viewers. We definitely want you to know that now is a great time for you to leap in, to jump in, to be ready to start your business, to bring the ideas to the front, to meet someone's need. And you have help from any member here of Vision Work Solutions, Launchpad Consultancy, Ingenuity Business Development, or the Timely Entrepreneur, or myself, Simone Neckham, if you need help in terms of creating your own narrative or just understanding your focus and helping you to get to where you want to go. We must also, I have to also recognize Arnold Bess, who provided the appetizer and really whet our appetites in terms of reminding us how we must fall in love with our customers, believe in the product that we have, and look for those opportunities that are out there. And he also reminded us that the business is not our own. Hey, spoiler alert. Look out for his new clothing apparel launch of reflective clothing, and I'm sure Arnold will keep us posted on that. Thank you so much to Randall Douglas sharing with us about the Pascal D. Please do remember the D, the digital. We're here because of digital, and he really gave us a sense of the environment and the importance of scanning that environment, because once things change in the environment, surely there are things about your business that has to change. It picks up from what is happening in the environment. So you don't want to be left behind. You must understand that those political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental, and digital changes that you need to get on board with. Sheldon Blair, Timely Entrepreneur, thank you so much. Love the quote from Winston Churchill: never let a crisis go to waste, but rather find the strengths and link it to opportunities, because there are opportunities. If you're not sure, if you don't know how to tap into it, of course, Timely Entrepreneur is available to help with the SWOT or any other person on the panel. And then Mr. Roll, thank you so much, reminding us, be open-minded. Be open-minded, because value comes in various shapes, sizes, and business models that can help you. You want to start a taxi service, but you don't have a car. Roll just told us, no problem. If Uber did it, you can too. So thank you, Roll, for the business canvas model and helping us to understand we don't just want one-time business, but we want repeat business, we want sustainable business, and of course, you will want to scale your business as well. Alina Lewis, connecting all the dots with us, reminding us, from your strengths, choose a feature that will cater to an opportunity that exists, and consult your business model to focus on that feature where you will really be able to find a niche or find the the persons that you are able to meet their need for. It's been a wonderful evening. We thank you so much for joining us. I am Simonicum. Thank you again. Oh, and the third webinar that VisionWorks and partners will be having, you don't want to miss it. It is Go Pivot on this Saturday, November 13th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Listen, we're going to have some motivational speakers. We're going to have a networking event. So you do want to register. You do want to be in the house. You do want to show up so that together we will all be able to benefit as we pivot to profit. I am Simonicum, and once again, on behalf of the panel, good evening.